everybody, and welcome back yet again to another episode of the 100 Series Everyday Awesome Podcast, streaming live right here on twitch.tv/100 Series. And thank you all for tuning in, whether you're tuning in now live on the live stream, on the VOD, video on demand later, on Apple, on Spotify, wherever it is. Thank you for checking us out. We definitely appreciate you. Having a lot of fun here on season 3 of the podcast. We're doing some really cool things.
Cool.
Doing some really cool things. I didn't really think I'd be doing a season 3. I started the podcast itself like almost 2 years ago, and now we're up to almost 70 episodes. Almost. We're getting to 100. That's obviously
series.
Obviously, you all know that's my number. That's my favorite number, 100. So we got something special planned for when we get to episode 100. We have a little bit of ways to go, obviously, but we're definitely excited to keep this ball rolling and keep this journey going. And one part of that journey is a woman who has been on quite a journey herself. She is very big into the fitness world here in the QC. Mm-hmm. She finished her schooling in chiropractic here in Palmer and Davenport. Mm-hmm. She's been from the East Coast to the Midwest, back to the East Coast, back to the Midwest. And we're going to talk about all of that because I want to know this whole story. We have Dr. Marisa Baumann joining us now. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks. How are you?
Excellent. I'm doing excellent. Feeling good. Feeling great. Especially after a nice adjustment that you've given me. Thank you again for that.
Namaste.
So Dr. Marisa Baumann, has that sunk in yet?
When I graduated, you wait like so long for that moment, where you walk across the stage and you can say, all right, I'm here. I officially made it. And it took a while. And I think even when I was starting out, as I was meeting people in the community where I was planning to open, sometimes I felt not like self-conscious, but you introduce yourself and I'm like, do I introduce myself as Dr. Marisa? Do I introduce myself as just Marisa? Because at the end of the day, like, really, I'm just me. I'm just Marisa. Like, I did this schooling and it accredits me with this credential, which is beautiful and fantastic, but you don't really like feel any, different or anything.
Right.
So it's sunk in. I think as time went on and when I actually got into practice and was able to do the things that I was taught to do and that I learned and was so, crazy passionate about, that's when I really started to own like all those years and all that time and effort that went into what would have created Dr. Marisa,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is so cool. So cool. And you definitely deserved every bit because you definitely have put in the work. I've seen it myself.
Yeah, you were there.
Yes. Yeah, I was there.
This one came to Palmer Clinic when I was a student.
I did. Yeah, well,
figuring it all out.
I'm all about helping out my friends, So, I would happily, be, the person to help you get further along in your studies. And it paid off.
It did.
You are here. You are doing it big now.
Doing it.
Yeah. So obviously, I know you very well. I've known you for several years. But for everyone at home who may not know you, go ahead and just give them a little idea of exactly who is Marisa Baumann, Dr. Marisa Baumann.
Dang, you want the long answer, the short answer?
We'll do the short one now. We'll get the long one as we get along.
Well, shoot, I guess, it's funny. I would have answered this question so differently even just a year ago. But having gone on this journey and just even over the last year, having learned so much more about like myself and what really truly makes up like my worth as a human being and individual, I would have typically described like all the hats that I used to wear and all the like identities I used to have, as like, what did I do and what have I done and where did I go and what have I contributed? But now, like, when someone asks me, like, well, who are you or tell me your story, I think the biggest thing I say is just, like, I'm just an individual who is learning how to get through life and really determine, like, what at the end of the day makes my heart the happiest and how do I make sure that I live and serve from that heart space. versus worrying about anything else. So at the end of the day, I'm just a girl who's learning how to serve from her heart and live from her heart in the simplest, most happiest way possible.
All right. Now, that is an answer right there. I like that a lot. So let's start kind of from the very beginning with fitness. How did you get into fitness? Because that's where I first met you. I met you at the foundation.
Yeah.
In the Quad Cities, your local CrossFit style fitness facility.
Yep.
And you were always tearing it up. Like you're always doing the RX workouts. Which if you don't know, if you're not familiar with CrossFit, RX means that's like the recommended way that you should do a workout. And during the competitions, you were always in that RX division.
Sure.
Always tearing it up. Always hanging out with my man Coy Jackson. Shout out Coy Jackson.
Love Coy.
And always on his team and repping Rip City.
Kyle Peters, Rachel Green.
Yes.
We just went to the games.
That's awesome.
Great.
Yes.
Yeah. We had fun times. Actually, the original Rip City team was Kyle Peters, Morgan, and Coy and I. And then Morgan left, and we pulled in Rachel, and it was fun. And then one time, Kyle couldn't compete, so we had Alex compete with us. So Rip City has evolved and changed a little bit over the years.
I remember.
Kyle Peters and Dak Fad, they're like the core of what made up Rip City.
I love seeing the Rip City t-shirts.
Yeah.
They always had for sale
it was fun.
up there. And I remember the last competition that I was at for the Urban Street Games. That was like 2 years ago.
We didn't have anything last year, so it had to be 19.
Yeah. You were on that team with Alex, Coy, and Rachel, and I remember because I was taking pictures there, and you were tearing it up, like giving it your all, and like because there was one picture where like I had where Alex was just holding you in his arms, and you were like dead.
I was dead, out. Literally dead. So just like save me, but I wasn't always that way, and I actually, believe it or not, I'm getting a lot better, but I'm super like uncoordinated when it comes to like hand-eye or like ball-hand sports. So growing up, like I played soccer, but I was maybe like 8 years old. And so like, what do you do when you're 8 years old? But I was always really quick. So I would play wing on my soccer teams, and I would just take the ball up, pass it to the middle, we'd score a goal. And it was fun. Like I loved being that like support. And I think that's why I love like doing team stuff so much more than doing individual or even like partner stuff, because you have that person to play off of and you can utilize both your strengths. But so I did soccer for a little bit, and then actually in middle school, my best friend, she ran cross country. So instead of going out for soccer in school, I actually decided to go and do running. And that was really hard at first, but I grew to love it. Plus, she did it, and so it kind of like felt like a team because we were together doing it. And I actually then continued in high school, and I moved right before I started 9th grade. So I moved right before high school to like a totally new district, didn't know anyone, but joined the cross country team, and we ran every day together that summer. And so I got to meet a lot of the school kids, and I created friendships, which was great. And I actually took running with me all through high school, and I was going to do it and started in college, but then freshman year, I just really didn't like going for and trying to be a student athlete. So I was actually dating a guy at the time who was in the Army, and he had been doing CrossFit because back then CrossFit like got its name through work with like fire departments, police departments, the U.S. Armed Forces. And he had been doing it, and I was always of the mentality, like, women can't lift weights. Like, women can't lift weights. Like, we'll get real bulky. Like, I don't want to touch that stuff. Like, I don't want to, hurt myself and all this crap, right? And eventually he, like, wore me down enough that I gave it a try. And me and his mom actually went to our first CrossFit class together. And I just fell in love with it. It gave me that like team aspect again that I had been missing since high school from like running, and that I didn't have in college because I would just kind of run on my own at that point. And now you were like in this class, everyone has so much like energy and camaraderie, and like there's just this sense of community like within that gym that I was really attracted to it. And that was back in, like 2011.
Okay.
So I did it for a summer, but then I went back up to college and they didn't have a gym where I was going to at school. So I just kind of did some random stuff in like the gym there and called it a day. And it was very like off and on. But in 2013, there was a local gym that opened up. So I actually went there. I met like my best friend from college now, Jamie, there. We ended up coaching together. We got our coaching cert. And then from there on, like that was it. So we had a lot of fun. And that's when we really started to like get more into the competitions and, you know, be more out in the public eye. And CrossFit was starting to really gain a lot of traction at that point as like a sport and something for people to do, and more of the community and just everyday people would come in and do classes. And I loved that you could RX the workout, but everything was like infinitely scalable. So no matter what level you came at, you know, you could do it. And so, yeah, like people will see me like, oh, you're fit, or oh, you can do the workouts, RX and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but I can't catch a baseball in a mitt, like to save my life. And I've been practicing and I've gotten a lot better at bags, Beersby. So I'm working on it, but yeah, hand-eye coordination I could still use a little help with.
And this was all on the East Coast, right?
So yeah, that was all on the East Coast. So I went to college at Villanova, and that's like right outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, so on the main line there. I've lived most of my life on the East Coast. I did live in Connecticut for about 4 years when I was between like 3 and 9 years old. But both of my parents, both their families are all pretty much in South Jersey. So that's where I'm originally from, is right outside of Philadelphia, but on the New Jersey side. And so when I was going through sport, and I actually grew up like hating chiropractic. I knew nothing about it. I thought it was a bunch of like voodoo, like hoopla, BS, like what is this, crack your back kind of deal. And so I specifically avoided chiropractors for a long time, and I was considering going to physician assistant school or medical school. And this was around the time where I was coaching. And I was like, what can I do that will help me better serve like my athletes? And, you know, people come in with aches and pains and injuries and stuff all the time, no matter what they're doing. And so I was just trying to like really figure out where I fit in with all of it. And I have been dealing with my own injury. And I did all the things that like they tell you to do, right? Like I went to the ortho, I got my x-rays, I did physical therapy. I even tried like acupuncture, and that was like the most woo-woo, like voodoo thing that I had done.
What was that like? I've never had acupuncture. What's that whole experience?
Now I love it. But when I had first tried it, I did dry needling, which is where they put like a needle into the muscle fascia and then they like twist it. And it essentially like contracts the muscle and then relaxes. So it's supposed to help like increase blood flow and yada yada. But I have since tried it. I actually networked when I was a chiropractor with a local acupuncturist, another female business owner. And so she did a couple sessions with me, and I loved it. It's about balancing energy throughout the body. So it was really interesting. And it's also just kind of nice to have like a half an hour, 45 minutes where you can the point is to be still.
Okay. And
just kind of being yourself and be aware of your body. And I just think in general, mindfulness practice is so important. So yeah, it was kind of cool.
Wow.
Yeah. But I didn't like chiropractic at all. And when I tried all the traditional things and didn't get better, like 6-9 months, there was actually a chiropractor in the CrossFit gym that I was coaching and working at. And I eventually just gave in and went to him. And when he started explaining to me like the philosophy behind what he was doing and what chiropractic was, I realized that all my life I had the similar philosophy about the body and the nervous system and what we're really as humans like capable of insofar as healing goes, that it just kind of clicked like that. And I said, all right, I guess it's time to go to chiropractic school. And it's so funny because here I am, like Jersey girl. There's chiropractic schools in like upstate New York, which is gorgeous. Daytona Beach, Florida, California, Texas. You know, you can go anywhere. But I had never, ever traveled or been to the Midwest. And so I said, you know what, screw it. Like, if I've never been there and have had that experience, it's time to like go out and have that experience. So here I was, checking my shit all out, and I came to Quad Cities, Davenport, Iowa, and went to school. And that's how I ended up here.
So what was it like being an East Coast girl, now in the Midwest? What stood out to you most? What was there any culture shock for you being here in the Midwest?
It's funny because at first I expected to have culture shock. Like, I expected that it would be really different. But I think that's where, like, my own ignorance kind of came into play. Because where I lived in South Jersey is very much like Bettendorf, Davenport. Like, South Jersey is really pretty. And as you continue more south, you have the shore, you have pine barrens, there's a lot more farmland. Up north in Jersey, it's pretty. There's lots of hills, but it gets more congested. And then obviously you have the big cities like New York, and then Philadelphia is pretty big, but I would kind of compare it to like Des Moines. Pretty much you can get anywhere within 15 minutes if you're driving in a car. And then there's obviously public transportation. But when I came out here to visit in July, before I actually moved here in November, I was like very surprised. I mean, really, it was very much like living in Davenport, Bettendorf. The only difference that I would tell people is that in 20 minutes, if I left like my hometown in Jersey, I could be in the city in Philadelphia. If you drive 20 minutes outside of the Quad Cities, like you're just in the middle of the cornfields, right? You're nowhere. You're just nowhere. So that was the only like main or major difference between the two areas. So I really didn't have a lot of culture shock, but it would crack me up because I would go home. People are like, how's Iowa? How's the corn? How's the cows? And I'm like, it's great. There's pigs too. And I got the whole thing. So I think a lot of times, like, you know, we just have this like idea that the Midwest is just a whole bunch of like nothing and land and flatlands, right? And then the East Coast is just so like busy and congested. And yeah, there's definitely pockets in every area, but it was actually not a huge culture shock. Like, I very much felt comfortable just like being in here.
That's cool, and I think that has to do with the diversity of the region. Because here in the Quad Cities, you have like everything. You have the suburbs, you have the inner city, you have the rural farmland. Yeah, completely. You have all of it in like one little spot. Yeah. So it's like you literally can cross the street, right? And like you're in your inner city, or you cross the street again, and you're in the downtown. You cross the street again, and you're on a farm by a cow. Right. And like having been to, you know, larger cities, I love to go to LA. I go to LA a lot, visiting my cousin and all the other creatives out there, just getting around that whole different vibe. Yeah. But LA it's its own monster, and it's completely different from anything you will ever experience here in the Quad Cities. And yeah, I really, really, really appreciate coming back. Totally appreciate like what we have here. Yeah, I think a lot of people, especially when you're here a lot, you kind of grow a little weary and tired of where you live. And I think that's everywhere. So definitely get out and travel and just see other places in the country, in the world, or even your own state that you've been to, and you'll get so much more perspective. Totally. And you'll definitely appreciate where you live a whole lot more, trust me.
Or realize that like you like something different.
That as well.
Hence why I ended up back in the Quad Cities after moving back home. Have you been overseas?
I have not yet, and the way things are right now,
I know.
I don't know when that's gonna happen.
I know.
I've been to Canada though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. I've been to the Niagara Falls, Canada side.
Yep, gorgeous.
That was really cool. Yeah. Being able to see all the waterfalls and everything, and we got to go up to it's called the Skyline Tower that overlooks the waterfalls.
Oh yeah, it's like a big needle.
Yeah.
Kind of looks like a.
Yeah, and it spins.
Yeah. Okay.
It spins. Yep. Yeah. There's a restaurant on the top, and it spins, and like it's like it takes an hour for it to spin all the way, so you see everything around you.
It's pretty. It's a gorgeous area.
And went to Toronto. Cool. The Six. Got to go to the Six.
Okay.
Yeah. So then that's a pretty cool city itself.
Nice. And
from Toronto, we went to Montreal.
Wow.
And that was the biggest difference there, because they speak French in Montreal, and I didn't speak French at all.
Oui.
So I was thankfully that I have some of the friends I was with. They spoke French.
That's cool.
So I was all right.
That's always helpful.
Yeah, but yeah, it's interesting how different Canada is from the U.S. Just from the small things like the currency and the metric system and all that.
Yeah, we're kind of in our own world sometimes here in the U.S.
Yeah. I definitely do want to go back to Canada sometime.
Yeah.
Probably more so West Coast because I'm just so in love with the West Coast. So, definitely eyeing Vancouver
There
at
you
some
go.
point in the future.
Yeah.
Seattle's also on my list as well.
Seattle's cool.
I haven't been, but I've heard a lot of good things about Seattle.
Yeah.
So I definitely want to check it out now.
You go to Seattle, and then you can hop on a cruise ship and take a cruise around Alaska.
Oh, that's really?
Yeah. We did that when I was younger. My dad took us on a vacation where we did that. It was pretty cool. So we spent like a couple days in Seattle, and then you ported there. And I think we went to Juneau, Sitka. We went to like Glacier Bay. It was really cool. Totally different like experience.
Well, I bet Alaska, but it's just in itself, you have
neat.
the mountains.
Yeah.
And did you see any caribou or anything like that?
I don't know. We didn't do too many excursions. We flew to a glacier and walked on that, but we didn't get to see much like wildlife. I think in the helicopter we got to see like a couple bears, to be honest. But yeah, nothing else.
That's awesome.
It's fun.
Yeah, Alaska's definitely a place that I want to check out too.
Yeah.
Just I've never been anywhere that's like that before.
Yeah.
And I definitely, after having traveled so much to the same place so many times, I'm definitely putting a list together of all the places I want to check out.
I've even considered like getting a U.S. map because I've been around the world a little bit, which has been incredibly amazing experience, and I've been very blessed to be able to do that. But I haven't really traveled too much in the U.S., and I would really like to go around. So I've considered getting a map and just darting, and just going where the dart lies.
That'd be cool.
Just like using an excuse, like maybe
Right.
picking the nearest like area of civilization or whatever. But yeah, just to like do different things.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know. I have a cousin of mine where he's a violinist. Lee England Jr. Shout out Lee England Jr.
That's
who was
awesome.
actually in New York City right now. And he I know when I visited him last when he lived in L.A., he had a map of the U.S. And on his map, he had little pins of every place,
Like where he's been.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So it's still like I'm trying to get like my own little map together.
See,
like
there
that.
you go. There's so many places in the U.S. that I think, are not as traveled and should be.
So, coming back now to the Quad Cities.
We digress.
We got off on a little tangent there, but that's all right, though. Let's talk about how you got linked up with everything here, with Foundation,
Yeah.
Palmer,
Sure.
all that.
Sure. So I chose Palmer because that's where the chiropractor that I knew had gone. I knew one chiro that went to Palmer Davenport, and I knew one chiro that went to Palmer, Florida. And I was really between the two, but like I said, I wanted a new experience, so I came to Davenport. But CrossFit was the fact that I did CrossFit back in Jersey was how I got connected here. And so I remember researching like the area and finding QCCF, Quad City CrossFit, and that was the like pretty much the only gym really like in this area at the time. This was back in 2015. So I took a trip out here to visit the area, to find an apartment, and to like tour the school prior to moving. This was in the summer. And I reached out and said to the QCCF, like, hey, I want to drop in. I'm going to be in the area. I'm moving here in the fall. What's up? And so I actually met my best friend here, Maddie. She was a coach at the time and an athlete on Quad City's like games team. Because that's too, like when I was researching, I was like, oh, QCCF. At the time it was like Seth Rollins' team. Like he had like sponsored them at the games and stuff. And so I said, oh, this will be fun. And this is a way for me to like continue a little bit of competitiveness and just kind of get it back into things. And I came out, met with Maddie, met with Brandon, who is part owner with Josiah, and just loved the atmosphere, loved the community. I met Maddie's mom, Amy, and I said, this is great. When I come back, here we go. And I think the week that I came back, I got settled in for a couple days, and then I had been at the gym, and Maddie and I decided to like go get ice cream at Whitey's. I had never heard of Whitey's. Like, what is this Whitey's thing? And we went and got ice cream and sat there and chatted for maybe like an hour or something. And from then on, like we became best friends. And from then, just being a part of the gym, I worked out, and having my coaching certification in January. So just a couple months later, I started coaching at their other location in Moline, right next to Milltown Coffee. Or
Yeah,
what
that's
used
the
to
one.
Be.
That's the one that
you were at.
I went to. Yeah.
Yep. So I did like open gym, and I coached with Hector, like a girls soccer team, like class, and just continued to meet more people. And that's how I really got connected, like with a lot of the locals in the Quad Cities, because you meet people at school, right? So like we immediately had a group of friends at school that was great. There was like 20 to 25 of us, and we supported each other through studying and everything related to chiropractic and being in doctorate school. But it was actually so nice to have a community of people and friends that was removed from school, and kind of an outlet when I didn't want to focus on that anymore. Like I could, get like a little escape and just, again, have people that are more rooted in the area, because too, once you graduate, like everyone usually, except for me, I guess, goes back to where they're from and like does their thing there. Very rarely do people stay here. And there are a couple people that are local that go to Palmer, but the majority of people come from all over. So usually they leave after school.
And speaking of Palmer, how was that whole experience? Obviously, you graduated, so it was great.
Yeah, sure.
But while you were studying there, what was that like?
It was a lot of work. It was just a lot of hard work. I think what really prepped me the most for doctorate school was when I had gone undergraduate at Nova. I originally went for communications and journalism, and then switched when I was a junior to biology. And so because I had already taken so many classes and I was on track, like I was planning to graduate early with my major in comm and my minor in poli-sci. But when I became a junior, now I had like, quote, 2 years left, and all I had were basically the advanced science classes to take. So I was taking like 3 or 4 lab classes on top of each other, and those are pretty like intensive classes and research classes and stuff like that. So it really, I think, allowed me to hone my skills on being a student. And so when I came to Palmer and enrolled in the doctorate program and stuck with the regular schedule of getting done in like 3.25 years, like the accelerated program, versus like doing it in 5, that's what really gave me the ability to learn a lot of information in a short amount of time, and then be able to effectively like put it into action and put it into practice. And then too, the group of friends that I made were all very similar in goal-oriented, like performance-based results. So we were all very good at continuing to encourage each other to be our best and learn our best, so that we could serve our best out in the communities again. So having those friends and being able to get together and study and actually be productive was really fantastic. And then, we would spend Friday nights usually doing our thing and having fun. And then that way, Saturday night, you recovered and then you studied and had Sunday. So like, it was a nice balance between school life, studying life, being able to get that mental outlet of like fitness and see my people at the gym every day, and then be able to relax with some of those same friends that also needed a mental break from Palmer, and then also like right back to studying. And I mean, these were long days. We started at 7:30 and sometimes we didn't finish until, 5 o'clock or so. And then you had homework and, shadowing to do and reports and everything. But
Good job.
obviously, you did it, right? Like you're going in a doctorate program. Like you got to know that you're going to work. So it was a humbling experience, but a very rewarding one. So I can't really complain about it now, but I definitely complained about it at the time.
I bet. Now, my dad actually, a long time ago, we're talking 2000, but he used to be a security guard at Palmer.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, this is a long time ago.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and so he would always give me like the insider details about what the students did there. So I had a little bit of idea. One thing that he said to me that always stuck with me was like that you guys use the cadavers, right?
Yeah.
To study with, right? Mm-hmm. What is that like, having to work with that?
Well, I'll tell you this: if you do it in the summertime, you just smelled all the time. You just smelled of straight like chemical and deceased individuals. It was rough. I think when we were in cadaver lab, I honestly don't remember. because you use them periodically, but I think it was second try, so I think we kind of just beat the summer heat. I think it was second try. I honestly, I can't recall, but I mean, it was the first time I had ever seen like a dead body, essentially a cadaver. So at first you just kind of go in and you're like, okay, like this is gonna be something new. And then like as we continue to learn and like had more advanced classes and like neuro and stuff, you know, you would literally be holding half of a person's head in your hand that was like sliced right down the middle so that you could observe like the sinuses and see parts of the eye and then the brain. Yeah, it's just really, really interesting, cool stuff. But I mean, it's a fantastic tool to be able to have even just access to that, right? And like have the people that decided to donate themselves, like, you know, be able to be those cadavers for our learning and our benefit. So it was always a very like, I don't know how to really phrase this, but just like honoring and respectful experience, I guess. Like you knew what you were looking at and it would kind of like catch you at some points, but also you just recognize the importance of like actually being able to see something in life, like live form right there versus looking at it in a book or drawing a picture of it, you know, or viewing like now they have so many 3D models and like anatomy stuff, which is cool. Like the technology is so great nowadays, but it was definitely really cool to be able to go into like a bicep arm and the shoulder girdle and like look at all the blood vessels and nerves that pass through there and be able to take what you were learning in the books, right? And actually see it right there. And then every person is different. Literally every body, right, is different. And people have different distributions. And sometimes the blood vessels and nerves pass through the underbelly of this muscle versus the overbelly of that muscle. And so like, it's just, it's cool to be able to see it there and touch it and feel it and understand it.
I bet you're, you know, very eager to get to the living patients as soon as you could, though.
Yeah, that's always fun, right? I mean, they tell you that you're not supposed to, like, practice on your friends and stuff when you're in younger tries, but, like, everybody does it. So we had been, like, fooling around and trying to, you know, sadly figure out, you know, how to adjust, you know, when we were even just in younger tries. But then once you actually get into more of those technique classes and then you get to start working on people in the community. So you start by working on each other. So, like, you're in the student clinic and you literally are working on yourself with other students in your try, and then you start getting assigned like the younger students, like the first tries and the second tries who like are coming in, and then you graduate on into working with people like in the community, which you might be lucky where you get an older try that's going to pass along some of their patients that now because they're graduating they need people. Or if you knew people in the community, like I was so blessed because of my connection with the CrossFit gym with the foundation or the old QCCF, I was able to even like bring in some patients. Especially when you have larger classes of students, sometimes the current patient base at the Palmer Clinic might not be enough to be able to help you get all the reps and all the experience, you know, adjusting people so that you can get credit so that you can continue to move on in the program. So it was really a blessing for me that I got to do that. And my friend Maddie at the time, she was pregnant and had her baby. So I got experience like working with pregnant mom and working with young kids. And so it was honestly, I had a really, really fantastic time when I was in school.
Nice. So when you finally finished, you walked that stage, got your diploma.
Yep.
I know you were during the last couple of adjustments you did with me at Palmer. You know, you're saying how you were planning on going back home and you know helping your community back where you live, and obviously I was pretty sad about that, but happy for you at the same time.
Sure.
And I know a lot of other people were as well. And let's go ahead and just talk about that journey back to the East Coast and what you did when you finally got back home.
Sure. Like you even wrote a testimonial for me. Like I was starting to create my website and everything, and it was cool. So when I went into school, I wasn't sure like if I was going to open my own or like work with another doc or what the best path was. But as I continued through the program, I really realized that being my own boss and having my own practice and practicing the way that I wanted to and the way that I felt the philosophy was best like communicated was going to be where I really thrived. And, you know, so many people tell you like the Quad Cities is so congested. Like there's so many chiropractors here and this, that, and whatever. And, you know, it became my plan. Well, if I'm not going to stay in this area, like I'm going to go home to New Jersey and I'm going to open up a practice there. That was always my plan. There are people there that need care. Some people in my family, like as I learned more about chiropractic and what it can do, I just realized how much like I wish I could have learned and done this sooner so that I could have helped people like earlier. And so I was very married to this idea that I needed to graduate and go home and open practice. So even though I had been with Alex at the time and like we were trying to figure out what that might look like, I was very much like, I need to go back to New Jersey. Like that's the only way. It's the only way that I'll have a successful practice. The only way that I'll fulfill like what I even came here to do. Like this is what I have to do. Like just so focused on like this end goal. And when I graduated, I ended up staying for a couple more months. I worked with a doctor local in Des Moines and just continue to learn from them because school does a great job of teaching you like how to be a clinician, but they don't really teach you like how to run a business. So at the end of the day, like you still have to pay your overhead and like make sure that you can have your doors open so that you have a place to serve people, right? So that was great. I went home in July. I approached banks to get a loan. I went around and looked at locations to open a practice. I knew that I wanted to be in more of like a retail setting and a commercial space versus being in more of like an office space or like a medical center space. I wanted it to be more of like a boutique-y experience versus being like, I call them carpet chiropractors, where it's like the old school where you're like driving down the road and you see like this like rinky dinky like wooden sign in someone's house, you know, and like you walk into someone's house and like it's the chiro or like even dentists and like other stuff. But and then I knew that I didn't want to be necessarily like in an office setting where it was like one room, all white walls, like feels super sterile and not like fun. I wanted to really let my personality and like just me shine through the practice as well and just create like this really nice, warm, welcoming, homey feel to a practice. So I finally found a space at the end of August, got connected with a bank and got a loan, started networking in the community, and we started our build out in the end of January. Now we're in like February, March of 2019. So I had been doing a lot of events, like a lot of marketing events in the community. I would go to bridal shows. I would go to craft fairs. I would go to farmers markets. I would set up at just random places. I joined a networking group and I was just marketing like, hey, this is what's coming. Walk along the process with me. We're going to be opening soon. Let's set you up with a preliminary appointment to come in. And it was literally 2 weeks before our ribbon cutting. It was mid-end March. The build out was done. The office is pretty much all set up and ready to go. And we hear 2 weeks to slow the spread, right? Coronavirus came in with a bang. Oh, man. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, well, we've got 2 weeks to our ribbon cutting. Like maybe we'll be fine and we can just keep on keeping on. Well, obviously that didn't happen. So we decided to delay opening. I had my team, like I had hired 2 girls that were working with me. We were training, like all getting ready. And we just decided to indefinitely postpone because we didn't know like what was going to happen or when people would feel comfortable going out again and stuff. But it was really disappointing. Like, you know, you put so much effort and that had taken a whole, you know, however many months, 9 months, 10 months to like get this process going. And we just like couldn't do anything. And it was pretty much all set up. Like I maybe had some articles and stuff that I wanted to write as like handouts to give practice members, but like all the paperwork, all the decorations, like all the systems, all of the technology, everything was set and ready to go. And so we didn't end up opening until July 6th. We opened up the weekend after July 4th. And this was a couple weeks after we had started to see like some nail salons were opening again, some gyms were opening again. You didn't have to like only go out for groceries or to see family members or friends, close relatives and stuff. So it was about, 3 months of downtime in between.
Yeah, last year was just rough for everyone.
Yeah, a lot of things.
Especially someone, like me who's always on the go, who's always, doing things and talking to people, meeting with people, and not being able to really do that for 2 to 3 months.
Right.
Was like, I had to get creative, as as we do,
Right.
just to find some way to still do what we love
Yeah.
amidst all this uncertainty and
Totally.
craziness that's going on.
Oh yeah, completely. And I mean, there are still people that haven't like quite recovered from everything. And so that breaks my heart. And it was a very humbling thing to be able to provide a service and like to the community and do something that would allow me to be open, one, right? And like actually run my business, because chiropractors were seen as essential at the time, because we helped to keep people out of hospitals, right? Out of areas where we needed more space and whatnot. So, but to be able to run that business and then be able to provide jobs for 2 other individuals, right, who weren't able to do anything, like that was a very honoring and humbling experience, just to say like, while so many other businesses and people were either out of work or like not able to open, that we were able to do that amidst all the uncertainty in the pandemic. So
What were some of the things that you had to do during like when you were able to officially open? You know, obviously still during the pandemic was still going on.
Right.
What were
Still
some
in the
things
heat
that
of
you
it.
guys had to do just to make sure that you were taking care of the patients properly and given all the different protocols and stuff that were put in place?
Yeah, so we called we had like over 100 people that were already with prepaid appointments like on the books ready to go. So we called every patient and just talked them through like our downtime when we were planning to open, and just see like who was comfortable coming in and who was maybe just going to continue to postpone until they felt a little bit more comfortable or until things died down. So we probably had about 10% to 20% of people decide to like continue to delay when they were going to come in for their first visit. And then for the people that were coming in, because we were new, we actually kind of structured it so that we only had like a unit in the office like every half hour. And then we had consultation rooms that were separated, and then our adjustment rooms were separated by different walls. So people were kind of like able to be in their own space, and you were only really interacting with one other person, like our team member at the time. And then we kept like our reported findings very small, where we did group reports. And so everyone was able to kind of sit along in the office, like where they felt comfortable. And so that's really what we did. We kept sanitizer, places for people, and we just did things that other people to help make them feel the most comfortable. So anything that we could do to help them, that's what we did. And then honestly, like one of the biggest things that we were able to do was just to provide an ability for people to take care of issues that were impeding their ability to have better health. So like you can't go out and exercise or get sunlight and vitamin D because your back is experiencing so much spasm and pain, or you're dealing with, hip issues or whatever, and they come and start getting adjusted, and now they start to feel better, and so they're able to exercise. And like obesity, is one of the like comorbidities to having any kind of respiratory virus turn a little bit more aggressive, right? And then you get people that are dealing with like asthma and lung issues, and they would come and start getting adjusted, and anecdotally they experience like not having to use their inhaler as much and being able to exercise more, or people felt more energetic and more motivated to eat healthier and get more nutrient dense foods. And so that was like our little way of being able to educate the community and help individuals on their own health journeys so that they could be a better, more functioning individual with less pain, and therefore less need for potential other interventions, or even just decreased risk of some of these other health issues that can concurrently make any kind of infection or virus even more aggressive. So that was really like humbling and exciting for us, because we got to help people through that.
Cool. About from the time you opened up your practice, when did you really feel like you were really like hitting your stride and really getting and going? And
I can't even. I think back to it now, and like sometimes I get myself choked up about it, because I know that it was the hard work that I put into it that helped me grow so quickly, but it still like shakes you that you get to see the fruit of your effort like so fast. So I mean, from November of the year before until, or essentially, end of October, November the year before, 2019 until March of 2020, I mean, I was doing events like constantly and networking every single week at chamber events. I had a regular like BNI style networking group, and that's really helped me start to gain traction. I was really active on social media. And so when we were ready to open, like I said, we had already 130 plus people that were prepaid with appointments, like come into the office. So then once they started on their plans of action based on their issues and stuff, we just started to continue to grow. And as people started to notice functional changes, then they would start to refer people in. And I mean, we grew we made overhead on our practice within our first like 2 weeks. And that was really quite incredible for us. And then we were seeing upwards of like 150 patient visits in a week, which was only 4 days by like our fifth week in practice. Wow. And then we continued to grow. When I ended up selling the practice in end of December, early January of this year, I mean, we were seeing 290, 295 patient visits in a week.
Wow.
So we grew really, really quickly, which is pretty incredible for one, a new practice just in general in chiropractic, but then two, a new practice amidst everything that was going on with SARS-CoV-2.
During a pandemic, you were able to get those kinds of numbers, and that's very impressive.
Yeah. And I only speak those numbers not because of what it represented for the practice. It's what it represented for that individual. Because when you're dealing with health issues or you're not functioning as well as you can, or you're in pain, like that eats up at your emotional and like mental health. And so the fact that like people were seeing such an incredible results and people were getting better. And so we started to grow and our marketing was working really nicely where people were interested in learning more. And we worked with a lot of pregnant moms and we got in with kids and kids with autism and like just incredible stories and histories, right? Each person that you affected, if their life got better in some way, that didn't just affect them. It affected their significant other. It affected any children that they had. It affected their, co-workers at work because they were happier, doing better, experiencing life in a different way without all that dysfunction and pain. So that was like hearing their stories and hearing like when we did our regular check-ins, like every so often in care and like getting to learn about what's been improving and whatnot, like hearing that was like the most rewarding part. And I think that's what gave me and my team even more motivation to like, we're doing something really important and we're actually contributing something really positive. And we just continue to encourage what was happening and what that meant for the community that we were doing. I went home with the intention to change the way that we viewed our health and change the trajectory of health in South Jersey. And I really, truly believe that that's what we started to do. And that was an incredibly exciting and fulfilling feeling.
And it's also important that you had that goal already set out. And
totally.
You told it to me.
Yeah.
And you spoke it into existence. That's really what you've done. You've said what you're going to do. Mm-hmm. You had the plan. And I read a book once and talks about this, that when you have a goal and you say it out loud, really, you give life to it.
Totally.
You give life to that. And then like your mind automatically starts to just figure out ways to make it happen. It's like when you wake up in the morning and you have to go to work. Well, you already start doing things that will get you to your destination. So when you have a goal like that and it's the main focus of your mind,
totally,
you're going to do things to make that become reality.
Oh yeah, I'm all about like understanding energy, understanding manifestation, like your reality becomes what you focus on, right? And just how to understand creating that vision and almost speaking things into existence before they exist, right? Like actually doing that and saying that is going to draw in or attract more of that energy from the universe, which can then help you continue with your goals, right? You can't just like sit there with a shovel and expect things to just happen. But as you put some of that energy and that work out there, you start to attract in, you reap what you sow, right? So yeah, but I'm all about that. I love the energy.
And I also liked how you mentioned that you were putting in those steps back in November 2019 before you even open to practice,
Totally.
that you were already, doing things, and you were taking actions to set up, the eventuality
Right.
of that practice becoming a practice.
Totally.
And I think a lot of people, they always see the end product. They never see all of the work that is put into making that end product happen, and don't discredit, what you don't see,
Right.
if that makes sense. Because, you take any, big pro athlete, you only see them for that little bit of time on TV during the game. You don't see all of the hours of practice. I always like to hear that. I don't know if you saw that Allen Iverson interview
He was a
a long time
Sixers,
ago.
Philadelphia Sixers.
Yeah, he's like practice.
Really?
Yeah, practice. But no,
it's all
but
about
no,
practice.
the practice is the most important part.
Yes.
It's like they say, champions aren't recognized in the ring. Or sorry, champions aren't made in the ring; they're recognized in the ring.
Totally.
Champions are made in practice.
Right.
So you gotta be willing to do all that back work.
Yeah.
So that when it comes to game time, you can really show the world what you can do.
Totally. Yeah, I'm going to botch it. There was like another great quote that talks about like, you don't rise up to the occasion, like you fall to the level of your training, because really at the end of the day, like that effort and that work that you put into it, that's what you're always going to have as your foundation and your baseline for sure.
And now you were in the East Coast. You've opened up the successful practice. And you mentioned it already that you sold the practice.
Yeah.
So what made that come around, and what made you want to come back to the Quad Cities?
Yeah, it's actually a really interesting story. So here we are, right before 2 weeks to slow the spread, like right before our opening. And how do I best describe this? You put so much effort and so much work into something. And it's something that I'm doing, right? I'm doing it. I'm producing it. I'm creating it. And then you get there and all of a sudden you have it. And it's like right within your reach. Coronavirus hits. Can't do anything about it. It's still right there. But we're not going to be in practice. But it's all set up. It's all ready to go. I have it. And for the first time in my life, I think ever, but at least since I was very young, it was the first time I really had to like sit with myself and be still, because we live in this like rat race world, right? And a lot of my own like emotional woundings and like history and identity was so wrapped up in what I could do and what I could accomplish and what I would produce and like being a contributing member and all of this, that I kind of lost touch of my own voice by like listening to the opinions and listening to the idea that you needed to do it and do it all and do it big. Like, you went to Iowa to get your doctorate. Like, you better come home and have this banging practice and show everybody all the fruits of your hard work. Like, you better make it. Show them all of that time that you spent away, what it's going to do, right? And, like, I'm capable of producing. I'm capable of doing. And that's how I always live my life. Like, always striving for the best, 100%, A's, do it all, be a great athlete. Like, do it, right? And now I'm here sitting still with the rest of the world, and I literally can't do. And I had to sit and recognize that when I didn't have that thing to do, me as Marisa was extremely unhappy. And I like cried for like nights on end. Just like, why? Because here you did, like, you got everything that you could have fucking wanted, right? Like, you got everything, but you're still like, there's something missing. And it took me a little bit to really start to understand like what that was and what that meant for me. And I actually ended up quarantining quite a bit here in Iowa. Like, I would drive from Jersey and I came here and I stayed here for almost all of pretty much from mid-April until mid-June. I was here, I stayed with Maddie and just kind of like lived in secret here and did some work on my computer because I had like nothing else to do. And I couldn't do anything at home either. And something kept drawing me back to the Midwest. Alex and I had decided to end things because of the distance and not moving forward anywhere. And I was really missing that part of my life. I was missing our puppers. And there was something about the Midwest style of life and having the space to breathe. Like I just kept like feeling like I couldn't breathe. Like I was so suffocated by opinions of other people, everything that was going on there, the need to constantly do and the need to constantly be busy, that I just ignored so many other parts of my heart and so many other parts of what made me me. And I just realized more and more that the Midwest was where I felt more like myself than where I was in Jersey. And so even before I opened the practice, I knew that I was going to eventually either sell it or bring in an associate and another doc in there and move back to the Midwest. Wow. And that it was a really difficult place to be in because here you were about to open. And I mean, like, we still opened and we still serve the community, but also have this like underlying understanding and this underlying voice and inner child that is saying like, this isn't going to be your forever home. Like this isn't going to be where it all ends. And so dealing with both of those like facets of life, like there was one part of me that was so interested in like finances and the business and like making this wonderful, fantastic thing for the community. And then there was another aspect of myself that was more about like my emotional health and my needs and my wants and my heart, that it was just like this back and forth. And I actually ended up starting to talk to an individual. His name is Pablo Jacopelli. He was actually a really fantastic tennis coach and tennis player. And I started chatting with him once a week, and his whole premise is like reintroducing you to your heart, reintroducing you to the blind spots, the emotional blind spots that we start to create as we like go through life. Right. And so in chatting with him when I was in this place was so crucial and vital in like almost teaching me how to listen more to like my heart and how to listen more to what I want, what Marisa wants versus what I thought other people wanted or expected of me. And that was probably one of the most freeing things that I've ever done. And I still talk with him every single week for an hour and learn new and more things about myself. And so when I opened the practice, I knew that when something came along, whenever an opportunity that was good for me, for the other person, for my practice members, for my team would come along, that I would evaluate it. And it was the second person that we had approached us. He worked with one of my mentors up in New York, and he and his fiance were interested in opening up a practice. They were going to actually open up in North Jersey. But when they heard about some of my story, because I had talked with some of my mentors about where I was at that point and the idea that I wanted to eventually move back to the Midwest, we didn't know if this was going to be like a 2-year thing or a 5-year thing or whatever. I just knew it was one day it would happen. And they actually came down and they checked out the practice, and we went to dinner and we chatted a little bit and we kept in touch a bit. And it was right before Halloween. They made me an offer. And it took a little while, and by December we had ended up signing a contract right before Christmas. And so in January they came into the practice and worked with us for about a month to get to know everybody and see everything and see the workings of the practice. But everything was the same. They practiced the same technique as me. They had the same systems and procedures in the office that they were working in as the office that I had. So it was like a flawless transition between me as the practitioner for my practice members and then Dr. Joe and his fiancée Sabrina, who ended up working in the office as like an office manager. So it ended up being, one, really quick, but two, the most incredible blessing because, January 30th, February 7th-ish, like I moved back and I'm here. And like, I think back to those nights where I would stay up and I would cry and I would just try and figure out like what what it was that was drawing me back and what I was really missing, and trying to understand and learn that, you know, to be back here in this area was such like a dream at that point. It was so out of reach, so many unknowns. And then the fact that, like, you know, 4 months later, like, I'm here just kind of blows my mind. Talk about like energy and manifesting. I swear there were other influences that allowed that to happen in the way that it did, and to happen in such a great way where now Dr. Joe and Sabrina, not only are they engaged, but they're expecting their first baby. And it's so cool to be able to have left my practice, which was, you know, my business baby, with a family that's going to continue to care for it and grow with it as they grow and support their own family. So like, that's what, and my parents, my sister, like my sisters, they all still go and get adjusted at Dr. Joe's. You know, it's now called Better Health Chiropractic. When I had it, it was Altum Chiropractic. And so being able to leave the practice and understand that and detach from it emotionally after having poured so much of your like energy into it, you know, was a lot easier. But I also think it was easy because I wasn't able to fully emotionally be present, because I wasn't my full, like, emotionally whole self either. And so it's been just like a really interesting last year, because I mean, we're in August now, so it was a year in July that I would have opened it. So it's just been an incredible journey, but a really, I think, important one. I think a lot of people go their entire lives like working and producing from a place maybe where they're not being their most authentic selves, or just listening more to their own inner hearts and wants, and regrets at like 70. And here I am able to do that at my age, and do it where now, as I go upon the journey of opening again or figuring out really what is next for me, I'm doing that from a much more emotionally like healthy and hearty place, and about like what Marisa wants that to look like and how Marisa wants to define her life, versus like all the other influences that, you know, you listen to because that's what you think you should do, or that's what you think you have to do in order to really be something, you know? Yeah,
and I've definitely noticed a lot of people over the last year,
totally,
who've had those same
similar
types of revelations, myself included, about like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
And is it really what my heart's, you know, into 100%?
Totally.
And I think a lot of us have realized that the answer is no.
Yeah.
That there's part of us that we're not tapping into.
Yeah.
That we're not embracing,
right.
Whether that be from other people's influences, mm-hmm. or just from our own idea of what
right.
of what we're supposed to be doing.
Totally.
And having all this time last year just mm-hmm. to ourselves, and having to really like face ourselves, mm-hmm. and not being able to go to our jobs or our businesses or our professions gyms that will occupy our time, so we don't deal with those things. Right. Well, now we have to, and we're actually learning things about ourselves that we needed to learn.
Totally.
And I think that that's a beautiful thing, because we're really growing as individuals because of that. Yeah, you're really hitting it there with some of those things that you said. Like, I think if there's one thing that we can take from this past year, and one definitely positive thing we can take from experiencing SARS-CoV-2, is that it definitely forced people to slow down and reevaluate like what's important. When you take all that other stuff away, what's really the most important thing at the end of the day? Like, more people spent time with their families, like their immediately family mm-hmm. unit. Like, there were some practice members that would tell me, like, I haven't had dinner with my kids, like all sitting down at the table, in like years, because everyone's got sports, or they got school mm-hmm. this or activity that or activity that. Like, right, we fill our lives with so many things that like just having that uninterrupted mm-hmm. like time was actually quite a gift. Exactly. Yeah. I like, you do see what I've been doing with the 100 series. I was like full force, like can't stop, won't stop. Like, I wouldn't go to sleep until I collapsed, like from working, because that's how focused I was on this. Totally. And you know, when all this happened and I just had nothing to do, I was like, you know what? This feels good.
We need rest. Like, we need rest. We're humans. You know, so many of us have like an incredible capacity and like a reserve of energy to do, but it doesn't mean that you have to. Like, utilize and tap that energy in a healthy way when it's for something that makes you happy or is for a purpose that adds a lot of value to your life. But oftentimes we end up tapping into that reserve just for the everyday and just because. So yeah, starting to kind of like trickle down and, like you said, like identify what things are the most valuable or are the most important in our lives, and things that we truly actually want to do is something I think we've all kind of learned through this experience, for sure.
And now that you are back here in the Quad Cities,
Yeah.
I have to ask, what's next?
Yeah.
What have you been up to? I'll ask that. What have you been doing since you've been back?
It's a loaded question. A lot of things. So one, I knew I just wanted some downtime, right? Because I had just gone from 0 to 300, you know, for a very long time. And I just wanted some downtime. So I took like maybe 6-ish weeks where I just kind of chilled, got settled into a routine, unpacked everything, and just kind of figured out, wow, what the fuck did you just do? Like, excuse my language, but just like, what the hell?
You're good. You're good.
And just kind of like process everything that happened. And then I started to slowly get in. So I do like a lot of random stuff. Like, I love chiropractic. I'll never leave it. You know, I adjust here. I have my license here in Iowa, and I do coverage work for like local doc if they, you know, need a vacation or need time off. So that's a blessing. I'm able to do that for other chiros, which is great. And then I hang out with dogs. Like, I'll dog sit and I'll do substitute teaching. I did sub teaching for a little bit this spring, and I'll do that again this fall. I'm helping out at Mayrocky Beauty Room. So my friend Dashi owns a hair salon there. And that's another great way to like continue to meet people in the community. And I will definitely, I truly believe I'll have my own practice again.
Okay.
I definitely want to open up, and I'd like to do it on my own. There's just something about having your own thing. It's just like, it's a whole different thing. So I have some ideas of where and what that might look like. You know, before I thought so crazy about the Quad Cities was so congested. Like, how can any one individual like make it? But when I went home, like, there was literally a chiropractor on like every street corner. I was like, it's really no different there or here. It's just your perspective of it. So I'd like to do my own thing again. And I'm just kind of allowing all the crazy inflated prices to go down as we look for where to do a build out and what that might look like. But there's also something on the horizon that I haven't quite put my finger on yet that I know I should remain open to doing. So when I open, I don't think it's going to be quite as big or quite as elaborate as it maybe was in South Jersey, or maybe quite as often, like maybe do it a little bit lesser days during the week, because I feel like there is something else that's coming that I haven't quite figured out yet that speaks to my heart that I want to remain open to being able to do. I picked up horseback riding lessons.
Oh,
That's
really?
been super fun. Yeah, I've always wanted to take horseback riding lessons. I've always loved like doing trail riding and stuff with my family. But so yeah, I'm just trying to do more things that continue to introduce me to me, if that makes sense. And just I'm allowing life to unfold more versus trying so hard to like control how life unfolds, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah. I understand that perfectly well.
Yeah.
You know, it's like sometimes like you know, like at least for me, it's like I gotta make things happen. You know, it's like if I'm not making things happen, I'm not using my time efficiently.
Right.
But you know, sometimes you just gotta be patient.
Totally.
You just gotta be patient and just you know. Do good.
Right.
Be good. Do things with a good heart.
Totally.
Good karma is a real thing.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And you know, if you do that, things will normally work out for you.
Yeah. I know, like, if I ever had to tap right back into that Marisa do go mode, like I could, right? But I just don't want to. Like, it's not, that wouldn't be me being like my healthiest emotional self. So allowing life to kind of unfold and take me on the journey of what is really like calling me to it, and making decisions because it's what I want to do, or it's because it like actually feels the best emotionally, like healthily. That is where I really want to spend my time, like living and being in.
Now, as we begin to wrap things up here, because we have surpassed the 1 hour mark here by quite a bit.
It's been fun. Yeah. We could talk forever.
Absolutely. I want to ask you, if you could tell the people at home who are watching, listening, one thing that they can take away from this conversation, what would it be?
Gosh. I guess, especially because we're ending on it, like, just really make sure that however you want to design your life or find purpose and meaning in your life, that the value comes from a place of integrity and like what really makes your heart warm at the end of the night. Like, nobody is on their deathbed saying like, oh, I wish I had worked more. I wish I had made more money. Like, most of the time people are talking about the experiences of their life. Like, I wish I'd spent more time with so-and-so or with my family, or I wish I had taken more trips. And we so easily get wrapped up in like just work and doing. And usually the people that are closest to us are the ones that get our worst selves, just because we've already spent our energy in so many other places. So really just taking more time to be more present with yourself and with the people that mean the most to you, and choosing things in your life that truly give you value and meaning as an individual, and not just because you're a doctor or a chiropractor or a journalist or have your own business or like all the identity hats that we wear, but just truly you and your most authentic and raw self would be my best piece of advice for people.
Oh, and that is an incredible piece of advice. Absolutely, 100% agree with you there. So, Marisa, how can people find you if they want to look you up on social media?
Sure. So my handle now on Instagram is Marisa Nicole 10. I think it might be Marisa.Nicole 10. And then Facebook, I'm just Marisa Baumann, Baumann. I am available for everyone. Everyone wants to chat, even just say hi. Hi, I'm here. I am not necessarily new to the area, but I love meeting new people. So if anyone wants to go out and grab a glass of wine or an appetizer, I love snacks. Snacks all day, anytime. I'm here. We'll bring Jawan along.
Yes.
He's cool.
Absolutely. Definitely.
But yeah, you can reach me there and ask me all the chiro questions or life questions that you're so inclined to.
Awesome stuff. Well, there you go, guys. Make sure you are following Marisa on social media. Hit her up, definitely. She is an incredible human being. As you've probably learned from this hour, almost 15-minute conversation.
We went way over.
Oh, it's all good, though. It is all good.
Thank you for having me on.
No problem. No problem at all. And everyone at home, thanks you for checking out another episode of the 100 Series Everyday Awesome podcast. Stay followed to us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, here on Twitch. We're definitely trying to grow our Twitch following here. We want to make our Twitch channel absolutely huge in the Quad Cities. So I know some of you are probably watching this video on demand, probably the afterwards, after we wrap up the stream. You're probably going to watch this. If you haven't got a Twitch yet, think about getting a Twitch, because I'm definitely going to be posting here more often, especially doing our podcast here live. So right now you're just watching this podcast live. It's going to be up here for at least 2 weeks. After that, unfortunately, Twitch has their rules where they have to take it down. So then you have to wait. You'll have to wait until it comes out on iTunes or Spotify. And usually that's going to be, down the road sometime. So yeah, make sure you follow us on Twitch. That way you can see it exactly when we record it live. So that's my little plug for Twitch. Again, everyone, thank you again for being with us, for supporting us, for allowing us to better serve you here in the community. We definitely appreciate all the help that you have given us 100%. Want to wish you all peace, prosperity, and positivity. Take care of yourselves, and as always, keep it 100.